Hey guys, this is Killrob speaking, and today we are going to take a look at a specific aspect of one of my all-time favorite games, Diablo 2. And the specific aspect would be rune hunting. Runes in Diablo 2 range from pretty common items to some of the rarest in the entire game. How rare, you ask? Well, probably lottery-winning rare. There are 33 different runes in the game, and in more than 3,000 hours I've played the game over the years, I think I have found only one or two of the so-called high runes, which would be rune 24 and up. The game masterfully triggers the hunter-gatherer instincts in players with an elaborate loot system that generates drops in the game, which could be worth a video in itself. You want better stuff? And the Skinner box does its job when players drool over the knowledge of some of the most powerful items in the game, many of which are crafted with so-called rune words, which use a certain sequence of runes of these rare items to make the ultimate EP extensions. In this video I'm going to show and analyze the rune drops from one of the main ways known for acquiring runes, the Countess. A unique boss that resides at the bottom of a 5-level deep catacomb in Act 1. We are going to repeatedly run this boss on Hell difficulty, that's the highest difficulty, and see what we find. 300 is the magic number for this undertaking. 300 runs to kill the Countess and get her runes. Of course, with 300 runs you will find plenty of runes, but most of them are not really worth mentioning, although they will appear in the statistics we discuss right at the end of the video. And the Countess can drop any rune up to an Ist rune on this difficulty, which is rune 24 and the first of those so-called high runes. But that is very unlikely to drop. Other semi-rare runes are notable though, and for those I've made a little live ticker so that you can keep track of what we find during this quest. More info about the character and the equipment comes right at the end, but for now let's get started. A Doll rune dropped on run 3 and a Hell rune on run 7, and 14 as well. And they showed up before the first drop of a notable rune on run 20, a Loom rune, which is rune number 17. A rare 4 rune drop contained another Doll rune on run 21, and run 28 gave us another Loom rune. Doll runes sure seem to be plentiful, as we found about one each 10 runs, another one on run 31. Run 34 has our first co-rune on offer, and that was rune number 18. Another Doll rune on run 36 paved the way for a really nice drop on run 41. A Doll rune and a File rune, the latter being rune number 19. On run 51 I found a Skillet charm that goes right into the item bank. Another Doll rune on run 56 and a Loom on 57. A really nice ring appeared on run 62, and our first IO rune on run 65. That was late. Mavina's belt dropped on run 75, and after another Doll rune I found Immortal King's Pillar. The next notables were our second IO, our fourth Loom, and our third IO in quick succession. The second 4-drop didn't give me anything special on run 91, and there was a bit of a drought until something crazy dropped on run 104. A Hell rune and an rune at the same time, the latter being rune number 22. Shortly after I found a File rune on run 106 and another File rune on run 115. The hype train continues on run 118 with a Lem rune showing up. That is rune number 20, and an even better one dropped shortly after. Nope, not a Hell rune, but a Mal rune. That is rune number 23, and it's pretty rare. These happy times came to a stark halt after run 121, where I found Tal Rush's mask and probably got cursed in the process with bad luck. A long wait for something good took me all the way to run 143 with a co-rune, followed by another loom, both on the run thereafter and on run 149. After I got horribly murdered when running out of full rejuvenation potions, which I didn't notice at the time, I decided to go out into the Bloodmoor to kill some mobs to get new potions, because they have a pretty high probability of dropping those. And the very first boss group I killed dropped this. Wizard Spike, an elite unique dagger with some really dope stats on it. Boredom ensued with some more Dol and Hell runes, leading all the way to run 176, in which a co-rune and a decent rare jewel dropped. The run thereafter had an interesting drop too. Rare ethereal greater claws with +2 to assassin skill levels, including the modifier of self-repair. Handy that! Unfortunately, it didn't come with a good mix of pre and suffixes otherwise. A loom rune on run 180 and some really nice boots on run 187. They came in the correct size too. I take those. Nothing dropped for a while until I found Endless Hail, a unique double bow on run number 200, followed by an ethereal Atma's Veil. And that was on run 202, and that sure is something for a mercenary to use. A Dol rune and a Hell rune were picked up along the way to finding another Io rune on run 219. Shortly after, on run 222, the second Lem rune dropped along with a unique warsword, which is Culven's Point. On run 235, I got the fourth co-rune and another loom rune on run 240, and found Todesfälle Flamme, a unique Zweihänder, on run 245. After finding a boring Hell rune on run 247, I got horribly murdered on run 248 by one of the most evil combinations of auras there is. Two random bosses right next to each other, one with fanaticism and the other one with might, making a comedic insta-kill of a squishy character like mine. After another loom rune on run 254, a pool rune showed up for the first time on run 256. That is rune number 21. Dol and Dol led to another Io rune on run 267, and a long wait for an awesome drop on run 285. Not runes though, 2 rings, one unique and the other rare. The rare one was pure shit, but the unique one is far from that. It's Dwarf Star. Unfortunately, there was no killer drop to round off the series of runs, just another Hell, Dol and Loom rune, and the latter on run 295. That was quite an undertaking. It took me a total of roughly 10 hours to complete these runs, and I shall show a full quick run and my terrible control with it after we've taken a closer look at these juicy stats from the 300 runs. In 300 Countess runs in Hell difficulty, a total of 556 runes dropped from her. In addition to that, I picked up 13 runes along the way. These are not included in the stats you see here, and the highest of them were 2 Shale runes. One of the most prominent features of the drop statistics is the clear structure in the drop rate of the lower to low mid-level runes. Tyr, F, Tal and Ort are on average a lot more common than their lower level comrades Eld, Nef, Ith and Ral. Disregarding these microstructures, we see a smooth distribution that peaks around the Ral rune, with good drop chances for runes up to and including the Hell rune. I'm not sure if the low rate of Ire rune drops was a freakish accident or is by design. Assuming that 12 to 13 runes dropped in these 300 runs would be the norm, which would make for a smooth distribution in that area, we would be about 2 standard deviations away from that with our results. That certainly is possible, but not probable, so undecidedly I lean towards by design. A similar point could be made for the rate at which we found soul runes, but this pattern still fits into the microstructure where every second rune drops at about half the expected rate. So let's move on. Anything below 10 drops in total needs to be taken with a grain of salt when it comes to connecting the number of runes to the actual probability of those runes dropping, as the relative error bars are huge for those cases. In 300 runs, every rune that can drop was found, with the exception of the elusive Ist rune, and not counting the chance of getting anything up to a low rune the first time you kill the Countess on that difficulty. Killing super unique bosses the first time ups their treasure class, and that is why you can find up to 2 runes higher than the Ist rune the first time around. Looking at the stacked representation of what we found shows just how rare those higher drops are compared to something like Tal, Ort and Arm runes. It gives a bit of a different perspective on the whole thing. Another interesting aspect is how many runes the Countess drops per run. In my 300 runs, the average was 1.85 runes per run, which should be pretty close to the theoretical average considering the rather decent dataset. I had 6 instances of no rune drops at all, and 2 in a row actually, which is really uncommon. Even more uncommon, however, is the case of 4 rune drops in a single kill. I only got that to happen twice, and certainly not in a row. The most common, by far, is the 2 rune drop. Now let's dig a little deeper into the stats and see how feasible these runs are for characters looking for specific runes, and if cubing up runes is a viable thing to do, or not. Here we have a list of all the relevant runes for our 300 Countess run quest, and this is the distribution of runes found. Dividing the number of runes found by the number of runs gives us the average number of runes for one run, or 10 runs, or 100 runs if we want. For instance, there's about a 25% chance to find a Tal rune, a 10% chance to find a Shile rune, and roughly a 1% chance to find a Thal rune. Don't forget that these numbers will be inaccurate for the less common runes, but this gives you an idea of what you can expect. One way to get higher runes is using the Horodric Cube in order to upgrade 3 runes of the same type to the next higher tier rune. For example, we could take 3 Hell runes and the specific gem needed and cube them up in order to get an Io rune. From the Pool rune onwards, you only need 2 runes and a specific type gem to create the next higher rune. So with these 300 runs, how many Ist runes would we be able to create if we cubed up everything we got? The answer is a single Ist rune. And that is not very impressive. So let's look at cubing up certain parts of the rune spectrum and see if that is feasible or not. If we cube up all runes from the 300 runs between the lowest rune, the L rune, and the pretty common Ort rune, none of which need an added gem to be cubed, we find that we could create a single Shile rune. But the worst part about that is that cubing that many runes takes a lot of time. If we estimate 10 seconds per cubing, then that takes a good 19 minutes to complete. In that time you could complete about 10 full Countess runs, and now compare the chances of finding something similar or better in these 10 runs with what we got from cubing. Right. Cubing these just isn't worth it. Instead, keep a few of them for lower helpful rune words and other things like crafting, or a way around expensive repairs. That would be the Ort rune. So no, it is not worth cubing them. What about the mid-tier runes and cubing those? That looks much better. In about 11 minutes you could get to about 10 Ire runes, 3 Loom or 1 Co rune. Comparing that to the drop chances of 5 to 6 runs tells you that this indeed is a good deal, so cube up anything you got too much of. It would be worth the time invested. And what if you find yourself with too many high mid-tier runes? Well, the little time spent cubing those certainly is worth it, unless you consider yourself lucky. There is another option for getting mid to high mid-tier runes, and that is the Hellforge quest. In normal difficulty, this gives you a flat 1 in 11 chance of getting anything between an L rune and an Arm rune. In Nightmare, that is between runes Sol and and in Hell difficulty, it is between runes Hell and Ghoul. So what is more productive, running the Countess or doing Hell difficulty Hellforge quests? Adding up the rune chances for one run looks like this. I included the 3 guaranteed runes from the Saving of the Barbarians in Act 5, although I should have left them out on Hell difficulty because the Hellforge is before that quest. Let's say one of these Hellforge runs would take a skilled player around 5 hours to complete, if tweaked a bit with items. If you can do this faster, adjust the numbers accordingly. 5 hours is a long time though, a time in which you could complete about 150 Countess runs, and we know the approximate stats for that. So all cubed up, what value do we get out of this comparing the two variants? The result is a tad surprising. Indeed, you have a better chance of getting a Ghoul rune when doing the Hellforge runs, but all other runes have a much higher chance of being acquired doing Countess runs, where you are more or less guaranteed to find all sorts of other useful runes too. This brings us to the final question to be answered. Is either of these a viable thing to do in order to acquire really high runes, above rune 25? The answer is a resounding no! It is not. It seems that the 3 alternatives to these 2 methods are superior. Super chest raiding in Act 3 in Kurast on players 8, doing Hell Cow runs, or just in general killing lots and lots of monsters in Act 5 Hell. Those will give you the best chances of finding that super rare rune for the Epine extension of your dreams. If you are looking for semi-rare runes up to and including an Ist rune, the Hell Countess is the way to go. With that being said, let's take a quick look at what kind of character I use to do these runs. I play in single player only, and that is just a question of taste, I guess, but this doesn't invalidate any aspect of this analysis because drops from the Countess and the Hellforge are more or less the same in multiplayer. The runs were all done on a player's 1 setting, with a minor amount of magic find which doesn't influence any rune drops at all, because the loot generation algorithms generate magic items after having fallen through the rune drop treasure classes. I created a sorceress for this task because she is the best choice for quick item finding for other characters, which I do via Go Mule, a handy tool for extending your stash and organizing the stuff you find. Focusing entirely on the lightning spell tree gives me a decent damage even with very basic items, which you can see here in the background. The reason for this is that the best farming areas I use in the game have a low number of lightning immune enemies on hell difficulty. Of course, this is not valid a build to complete the game. It is a helper character only. Let me end this video showing you one complete run. Thank you for watching. It was quite an effort to put this all together, and I hope you found it interesting or indeed helpful. Please like, favorite and subscribe, and I see you guys next time.